Hey, bub, I keep telling you, don't call me Wobby! Snicked.
Coming to Grand Rapids, Michigan on September 21st and 22nd is GrandCon Gaming and Comics Convention, presented by Celebration Cinemas. Join us in playing or chatting it up with fellow enthusiasts in a community that understands your passions. Get lost in the adventure of your favorite role-playing game. Admire costumes and art from vendors and attendees. Meet the creators behind your favorite mainstream and independent games and comic books. Check out unpublished games and sneak peek at things to come. You can get all this and more at GrandCon. For more information, please visit www.grand-con.com.
And guess what? You're going with him. No, Darkseid. To get off this rock, you'll have to go through me.
You really are a glutton for punishment. Time and again I've beaten you, humbled you. What makes you think today's outcome will be any different?
Because this time, I won't stop until you're just a greasy smear on my fist. Let's go.
Welcome to the Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with the rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
Usual vault rules apply. Touch not, lest ye be touched. You're such an anal-retentive bastard. Hey, I tried to teach you how to handle comics in the 6th grade, but oh no, you wanted to play Little League instead.
Come here. I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do can't be imitated, copied, cloned, or used without the express written permission of the Superhero Squad and Marvel Entertainment, LLC. Batteries not included. All rights reserved. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. We clear, bub.
Yes, sir. Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. This is episode 28, and we just came off of reviewing the Bat Books number 23 issues this month from DC Comics here in August. And now we have upcoming over the next 3 episodes, Origins episodes. Joining me is that modern gamer, Mike Boothninja Powers. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You are pretty much a modern gamer, hardcore, right?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah, because most of the time when I listen to your off-the-cuff podcast here on Geekcast Radio Network, go listen to that, people. You don't care about retro whatsoever, it seems.
Well, it's not that I don't care about it. It's that I am not fluent enough to have I can have conversations about certain franchises and stuff like that from my youth. I mean, I grew up with all that stuff, and I played them. However, I'm not knowledgeable enough to carry a conversation myself because I wasn't I was still into games when I was a kid as much as I am now. I know more about the nitty-gritty now than I did when I was a kid, and so, yeah, I don't really like to talk about it if I don't know about it, and our resident retro guy, Joe, he's coming up with some stuff, so.
Awesome. All right, so how did you get into comics? Was it a family member? Was it friends? Did you just see something and be like, oh my god, I must read this?
Honestly, it was, my introduction to comics was not a comic by itself. It was more the 1990 to I don't know when they stopped producing them, but Fleer produced a series of trading cards, Marvel trading cards, and kids were trading them back and forth in 3rd grade.
The X-Men cards.
Well, that was one set. That was because I remember that those were like the Fleer Ultra 94s, and I had a complete set of those, and I had a complete set of the 95s. But they also did Marvel Superheroes, which was every single character that Marvel made.
Right.
And kids were trading those back and forth in school, and I would see cards getting traded back and forth. And apparently, at some point, I mentioned them to my parents, and my dad knew a guy that he worked with that he actually got a complete set of the Marvel Series 2 trading cards for me.
Wow.
And then that Christmas, he also from that same guy, he got a complete set of the Marvel Series 1 trading cards.
Oh, wow.
So that my introduction to all those characters, while I knew them, my big introduction to comics was through like the trading cards and reading the backs of all of them and learning about the individual characters. My first real comic book experience also came that Christmas when my parents got me X-Men number 25, the Fatal Attractions issue where Wolverine gets the adamantium ripped out of him.
Oh, wow.
So that was like that issue was kind of my introduction to comic book collecting. I can't even really say I collected comic books when I was a kid because I didn't. What happened was I became aware of Fatal Attractions being a crossover event.
Right.
And I had my parents drive me to different comic book stores around town so I could collect, I can get Wolverine, I think it was like issue 50 or issue 75, and like Excalibur, X-Force, Uncanny X-Men, so I could have the entire story of Fatal Attractions. That was my first, thing.
Right.
And then from there, I collected like Robin 2 back when it was called Robin 2 and it was Tim Drake. The only reason I knew that was like a thing is because I got a action figure of Robin at the time, and then of course I knew it was a comic book. So again, I had my parents drive me around to the comic book shops, and I collected maybe 3 issues of that.
Yeah.
But it was more the cards, and my parents also got me a Marvel encyclopedia. I was going to bring it in from the garage, but it's from 91, and it has it's like those books you see at the bookstore now. It's like, the complete Marvel encyclopedia, everything you want to know about all the characters. And a couple of years ago, my parents got me the updated version of that, which is still in the trunk of my car.
Wow.
But that was my introduction with comics and with the characters in general.
So you were somewhere around 13, 14 years old when this happened.
It was like 91, so I might have been like 10.
10 or 11. Well, you're the same age as I am. We were both born in 80, right?
81.
So, well, you're a year younger. Yeah, so somewhere just, see, for me, and I know, this is episode 28 of the podcast. People are probably sick and tired of hearing me say different stuff, but I try to come up with different stuff that I didn't say way back in episode 3. For me, it was weird because I remember certain, and they weren't superhero comics. I know they weren't. They were either Transformers or whatever the Hasbro properties had back then. I specifically do not remember the Marvel run, whether it's Marvel US or UK run of Transformers. I just didn't have it, but I remember having different things that seemed like comic books to me. And I remember having this stupid book, stupid adventure book with Wheelie. Oh my god. Stuff like that. But I remember back in the mid-'80s, I think right after Transformers the movie hit in '86, I remember Transformers trading cards. I would kill to find a complete set of the Transformers trading cards from G1. That would be awesome. But yeah, no, I'm right there with you when it comes to the X-Men cards, and specifically for me, X-Men, I remember those specifically. But yeah, all those trading cards, and it was trading cards just to collect and trade with your friends. It wasn't, oh hey, all these new card games now, Digimon and Pokemon and all. I know those aren't. They have trading card game versions of those franchises, but you know what I mean. It's not like now where you have to get a dual disc and this, that, and the other thing, and fighting card game. Oh god.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like when the card collecting stopped for me was when Marvel introduced that Powers. It was their attempt at taking on Magic.
Oh yeah,
and that's when it stopped. Like I never even bought a pack of those. I mean, I know some friends started buying those, and no, this is just whatever. Not for me. That's kind of when it stopped. I wish I still had those sets. I looked them up on eBay a couple years ago. They're only $50. It's not like if you still have them, then you're going to make a lot of money off of selling them.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so when you were in your teens, what comics did you read? Were you a DC guy? Were you a Marvel guy? Or did you like pretty much anything that was put in front of you?
Well, see, that's the thing. When I was a teenager, I didn't read comics. I've always been an X-Men guy. Mm-hmm. The Avengers to me are kind of like, I mean, I like the Avengers when they're the Avengers. I do not like Captain America by himself. I don't like Iron Man when he's by himself. But that said, I've always been an X-Men guy, and I didn't really read when I was a teen, but I did have a friend when I was in high school that he and we never really got along, but he was always trying to, keep make sure the road between us was smooth because we hung out with the same group of friends. And right. He brought me a couple comics because he was collecting them, and he's like, "Hey, I got I bought these because I thought you might like them. I know you like the characters." And so, I mean, there was that. And the only other comics I collected in my teens was like a 3-issue run of X-Men, and it was like the Fall of Avalon, because I was obsessed with the Fatal Attractions and the fallout from that. And right. The Fall of Avalon, I think it's like the first run when X-Men came back from the Age of Apocalypse universe. And so that's I picked up those 3 issues, and that was pretty much it. I didn't really get into the comic collecting again until 2004. So there was a huge span where I was not collecting comic.
So what were you reading then?
I do have a leather-bound copy of Frank Miller's Batman.
Oh, wow.
Which is Year One and The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, yeah, it's a compilation. Yeah, it has the 2 in 1. Yeah.
And it looks like a Bible. Like I said, it's leather bound, and it has like that little cloth bookmark that it's supposed to have, and then the edges of the pages are like painted silver.
Oh, wow.
And that was like my first. Again, I've always been aware of what characters were DC and which ones were Marvel, but I never actually read the comics, and so that was my first time reading a Batman comic, was the Frank Miller stuff. And I've tried reading other DC comics, like in the past decade, like some of the Jeff Loeb stuff, like The Long Halloween, and some of the other ones I can't really remember. But there's just something about the writing, and it doesn't really matter what DC book it is. There's just something about the writing that seems very dry. And especially with those Loeb books, like when you get towards the end, I always felt like those graphic novels, they just unraveled in the last 3 pages, like 3 or 4 pages. And
I have never heard anyone, to my knowledge, any of the circle of friends that I hang out with or I talk to online, I've never heard any single one of them say a nice thing about Jeff Loeb and his writing.
Yeah, I collected a run of Wolverine that started in 2004. It started with Enemy of the State. Mm-hmm. I collected a run of Wolverine right up until Jeff Loeb took over the writing.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you just made me hate this character. I love this character, and you are making me hate this character. And you're making me hate you even more.
Yeah, that's the way I am right now with Batgirl. As long as Gail Simone is writing Batgirl, I am happy as a clam. Anyone else? There was that whole fiasco, and I've brought this up many times on the show before, so I'm sure listeners are tired of me saying this, but there was that whole fiasco when she got fired and then rehired. In the interim, when she was fired, there was a writer, Ray Fawkes, and I've never read, it's Fawks. I've never read any of his other stuff, but for me, a book has to have the consistency. It has to have a strict, if you set up a strict continuity of events in the first 16 issues of your run, and then you immediately, DC does something stupid and fires the writer and brings someone else in, I was so taken aback and just did not care at all about what was going on in Batgirl 17 and 18. And thankfully, they brought Ms. Simone back, and she's still writing it. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you on it as far as like when writers. I don't like when creative teams change up. I really, really don't.
For me, I see. I can't really have a in-depth conversation about like what Marvel writers I do like. I mean, I like the ones that everyone knows, like Millar and Bendis. I think I like their Ultimate Universe that they crafted.
Right.
But there's a lot of guys that I think Carey and Aaron are two that I kind of like now, and I cannot remember the guys. He started writing X Factor after House of M, and he had a really good run on that, but I can't remember his name, and I feel really bad for that. And I apologize for the dog barking in the background, but it's hot in my house.
Yeah, so what, so going from like 2004 to 2007 or 2008, like basically 5 or 6 years ago or whatever, are you still reading the same things now as you were then?
Well, actually, because of the Pull Bag, and wanting to have, kind of like how I am with retro gaming on Off the Cuff, I didn't want to start having conversations if I wasn't actually reading anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to start reading comics again, but I'm starting with some of my favorites and then following, either getting caught up on them, or following their through lines. I mean, when I started collecting in 2004, Danner art got me hooked on New Avengers, starting with number 1. And then I was reading New X-Men, not the Claremont run, but it basically became X-Men Academy.
You say that with such disdain, not the Claremont stuff.
Well, okay, I had a conversation with a guy on the Altered Geek forum, and I just finished reading issues 1 through 100 of an X-Men comic called Exiles, which is a really good comic. It's kind of like a what if style thing where the team goes to different universes. And it's kind of like, what if Doctor Doom had Iron Man's armor, or what if the Fantastic Four were evil? It's kind of stuff like that, and it evolves out of that premise. And Claremont took over the last 10 issues of Exiles. And keep in mind, this is a comic that changed hands over. It was 100 issues long. It changed hands every once in a while. The artwork was relatively inconsistent, but Claremont took over the last 10 runs, and I have never seen a comic go through the floor faster than that. Like, the writing became so stiff and so rigid, and these were characters that I had already read about and gone on the ride with for 90 issues, and all of a sudden he's using over exposition to explain all the characters and all of their powers again, and it's like, why are you wasting time doing this? And
so it's kind of like how I look at a Stephen King novel. He explains every little, like, this is a piece of rock that is broken down into this many pieces of rock, and it's that over explanation type thing.
But okay, I guess so. But the thing is, like, Stephen King novels, they're usually like some of them are one-off novels, right? So you want that world building thing.
Right, no. I'm just talking about, like, Claremont is explaining stuff to the point of, oh my god, we get it, can we move on? And that's me when I read a Stephen King novel, that's how I feel. Like, I'll read one page of a Stephen King novel where he's, in one page of the novel, he's describing one thing for that entire page, and I'm thinking, can we, like, move on already?
Well, keep in mind, like, my issue is he's just re-explaining all the characters, and I understand why certain writers want to do that, but that's what, like, in the Marvel books, that's what, like, the first 2 pages are for. Like, when you open up the cover and you see, like, the previously in Exiles, and then you get, like, a roster and kind of like a simple explanation of what their powers are. Like, that section of the book was gone after Claremont took over.
Oh wow!
And so it's like almost every single book had like some internal monologue from the character saying, "Oh, I got stabbed in the back, but my powers of healing will make sure that I'm back at top." I'm like, "Oh my god. I know you can do this, one, because I know that you're Sabretooth, and I know you outside of this 90-issue run, but why are you doing what? Like, why do I need to see that stuff?" And it just kind of, it really took me out of it. And I was going to read Exiles series 2 and 3, but Claremont stayed on for Exiles series 2. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I can't. And I it's kind of like the way I am with certain video game franchises. I get what Claremont did. I get that he opened the world up and stuff like that, like the Marvel world, and helped craft it and shape it into what it is. But I can't stand his writing. And it just never stopped. Like, I was like, okay, so maybe issue 90 was where they can bring in new people.
Yeah.
But no, it was like the next issue he's doing the same thing, but it's a different one of the characters that's got the opening monologue. And it's just like, it's like every issue that he wrote, that's where you could jump in at.
Yeah. That's strange.
But there was that. I got really one of the characters when I started collecting in 2004 that became really big and kind of a favorite of mine was X-23.
Mm-hmm.
She actually came out of the X-Men Evolution cartoon that you do not like.
Yeah. X-Emo is what that is called, people.
I
at least the first season. You cannot deny the first season. It's
See, I liked it. I was especially disappointed when it got canceled because their little like teaser thing for the next season was Age of Apocalypse. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I hate you so much for canceling this show. But they introduced X-23 in that series, and then they kind of retconned her into the comics. And so I was like eagerly going to the comic shop and picking up everything I could. That's how I got into X-Men Academy, because she showed up in there. And then I collected, she had 2 miniseries and then like a 20-issue run of her own comic. And then they put her in like Uncanny X-Force and some other things. And it was nice to, like, I just latched onto that character and I followed her through like all the different X events and stuff and got caught up to about, I don't know, maybe 2010, sometime 2011. And I'm just trying to do that again now with stuff that I'm reading.
Yeah. Yeah, see, for me, I started at a run where I started at a new storyline. That's how I got into it, and as I've said before in the last 27 episodes of this show, it's all Steve Megatron's fault. I started with Death of the Family. I still have yet to read Court of Owls, so when you asked me on Twitter a couple of weeks ago about, oh, where should I start? And I'm like, well, start at the beginning. It's the best way to do it. But I've said this on the show many times before, I do plan on, hopefully in the next month or so, getting the Court of Owls stuff and going back and reading that. But that's how I got started. And I love being that comic book reader that doesn't have the 50, 60, 70 years of, references. Oh, this is how it should have been. Oh, this is how it, I specifically to Batgirl and Nightwing, who are my 2 favorite Bat family characters. I love the fresh take, at least fresh take for me, because Ryan the Uneven Flow, who's also a host on this show from time to time, said that they were pretty much doing the same thing in the old continuity with Nightwing as what they're doing now, reestablishing him and whatever else. And I prefer the new I'm going to go back, and we're going to have many, many character spotlights here on the Pull Bag with the old stuff, but right now, as far as a current comic collector, I'm loving the new stuff. I do plan on getting into some X-Men stuff eventually. It's going to take time for me, because I have probably anywhere from $100 to $136 a month worth of comics that I collect in general without having to go back and do X-Men and Marvel and all that stuff. So I am pretty much a DC and IDW guy for the most part. But I mean, the stories, and again, you're right. It does depend on the writers. But the stories that some of the stories that DC is doing is really, really interesting. And for me, just like you said, you like the characters, and I'm the same way. I was skeptical as all hell about jumping into any Transformers comic, and then I read the Transformers Prime Beast Hunters, the Rage of the Dinobots miniseries, and that was awesome. And it was so nice and refreshing to see the Dinobots actually get character versus me, Grimlock, want to bash brains. I mean, it was so nice seeing people take care of those characters and actually make them into something more than what they were and what I knew them as. But I mean, it's just one of those things. So, outside of X-Men, what else you got going on? What else is in your reading list there?
Well, I read The Walking Dead because that comic is outstanding. Zombie
apocalypses do not exist, damn it.
Yeah, well, neither do giant robots. So, and neither do superheroes, for that matter.
Don't tell that to Kick-Ass.
I'm really just a Marvel guy. I just started reading today Avengers Academy because, like I said, I follow X-23, and when I decided, hey, I'm gonna find out where she is, because the last thing I knew, she was on an assassin squad with Wolverine and Archangel and Psylocke. So I was like, okay, well, I will go and find out what happened to her. Well, lo and behold, I found out that Wolverine was like, you're too young to be doing this stuff. You need to go have a life. And then apparently she ends up in Avengers Academy. So I was like, well, then I guess I'll start reading Avengers Academy so I can find out what that's all about. And I don't know, I'm not... At least the way that's starting out, it looks like it wants to be like an X-Men Academy, but it's not anywhere as good as that was. Mainly because Greg Kyle and Chris Yost are another writing pair that I really enjoy. They added a lot of what I liked to New X-Men or X-Men Academy, and they're not doing Avengers Academy, so which is like a younger. For anyone that doesn't know, Avengers Academy is like a young group of superheroes being trained by Avengers rejects. And it's still like a school. It's kind of like a school setting to it, which is fine. But I feel like it worked better with X-Men with younger X-Men characters, because Xavier's was a school to begin with.
Right. Right.
I mean, they still get into like all their troubles. Like in New X-Men, they end up taking on Stryker and Nimrod, and some really cool stuff happens. But I don't know. So I'm just kind of like, I'm just taking off from there. What I usually do is I just follow one line, and then you get like your crossover events, like Messiah Complex or Schism, or like in the DC universe, like that. The Death in the Family would be that crossover event, which is why I was like, well, where should I just read? That's why I was asking, is like, do I just read New 52 Batman up until that starts, and then read every single issue that pertains to Death in the Family, and then just finish it, or can I just read Death in the Family, without having to do anything else?
You can do both, but it depends on how you feel about certain of the characters. Like for me, I like Batman was it until Batgirl and Nightwing came in on Death of the Family, and I started reading that, and I started reading those, and I had to go back and get all of those separate from Death of the Family. But yes, you can read Batman number 13 through number 17 without going to the other tie-ins, but if you enjoy those characters, you're going to want to go to those tie-ins.
Right.
The good thing is, I believe either next month, either in September or October, DC is releasing a trade paperback called The Joker, Death in the Family, which I believe is supposed to be the all the tie-in issues in one trade. I believe that's what it's supposed to be. I would have to look it up to make sure that my thought process is correct. But I would wait. I mean,
I have all of them. It's not like an issue.
Oh,
It's just a matter of me finding the order to read them. Like I said, usually what I do is I was reading X-Men when Messiah Complex started. And
Right.
so X-Men ran into Messiah Complex, and I wanted the whole story of Messiah Complex. So I got all of the Messiah Complex issues. And then followed Messiah Complex out. Or followed X-Men out of Messiah Complex. So
right. Well,
it's probably
See, I
the
think-
same. I could probably do the same thing with Batman.
Yeah, I think Court of Owls and Death of the Family both have tie-in issues. Now, I do know with the 16 and 17 issues of Batman, you want to read all of the tie-ins first before reading Batman 16 because it leads up to all of the tie-ins lead up to the Joker capturing all the Bat family members, and then you want to read Batman 16. With 17, you want to read 17 first and then read all the tie-ins after that because it's the events after what happened in Batman 17.
Do they do the nice thing on like the last page when they're like continued in?
I believe so, yeah. They basically, I don't know if they do the continued in because I know at the end of Batman 16 it says continued in. I think it does with the 16 issues for those to lead up to Batman 17, which is the finale of Death of the Family. I don't know if they do that in every of the other tie-ins. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, and pretty much most of... I'm looking at the tie-ins now. Most of them are like from issue 13 to 16 or issue 15 and 16. Yeah, so it's just going to depend on which ones you want to read.
Right.
So, but no, I mean, you know, Marvel, I like their characters, but I prefer their characters in animation than I do comics. And it's just because I haven't read a lot of Marvel comics. You know, I'm currently reading Superior Spider-Man, and that's really what that thing at the end of Amazing going into Superior. That's what kind of drew me back into Spider-Man, and I actually cared about the character again because I've said this before on the show. Amazing Spider-Man had 700 issues. To me, there's only so many stories that you can write about Spider-Man going up against his rogues gallery. And I am one of those probably few people that actually enjoyed what they did in 700 to basically turn the Spider-Man world on its head and put Ock in Spidey's body and vice versa.
See, Spider-Man is another one of those Marvel characters that I don't like by himself.
Really?
The only Spider-Man comic I've been able to read is Ultimate Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
And I only read that because I was reading I read the entire Ultimate line up until the new Spider-Man takes over. Spoilers, but it's been a new Spider-Man for a while.
Right.
I read it up until then, and then I was like, no, you know what? The Ultimate universe should have ended with Ultimatum, and that's that. I don't think it should have continued on. It was just a mess after they tried to continue it. But I only read Ultimate Spider-Man because I wanted the entire picture of the Ultimate Universe. But I've never read a standalone Spider book by itself. Probably partially because of what you said. There's a whole bunch of continuity that goes along with it. Not only that, it was like 3 or 4 books at the same time. Because there was Spectacular Spider-Man, there was Amazing Spider-Man, there was Spider-Man, there's like
Scarlet Spider, and there was.
It was just dumb. I don't understand how one character could have so many books.
That's the same thing people say about Batman.
Well, I agree with that too. I mean, how can one guy?
Yeah.
I mean, because at that point, for me, in my head, you run into continuity issues. It's like, how can he be doing this in this issue and then this, like something completely different in the next one? Like, I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I also really enjoyed the Ultimate thing, is because it was, as far as I was concerned, up until about a week ago, the Ultimate Universe was its own continuity. Like, it was not tied to like anything else.
Right.
And I had my mind blown because of Exiles and the reality hopping business that goes on in there. But
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like people are like, some people I've talked to on the internet are like, oh, I don't want to read Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man's body. And I'm thinking, why not? It's the first interesting thing they've done, you know what I mean, in a long time. It's the first, Spider-World shakeup that they've really done. The problem is they're doing the same thing with Superior as what they did with the old Spider books. There's now Superior Carnage, which is a 5-issue miniseries. There's Superior Spider-Man, which is the ongoing. There's Superior Foes of Spider-Man. There's Superior Spider-Man Team Up. They're doing the same. I don't understand why Batman and Spider-Man have to have so many damn books for themselves. That makes... okay, Batman I can give Detective Comics, because Detective Comics was DC's main brand. Hell, it's their friggin' name, Detective Comics Comics. So I get that. But why do you need Batwing? Why do you need the Batman and series? Even though I'm enjoying reading the Batman and series, why do you need Batman Inc.? Why do you need Legends of the Dark Knight? Why do you need Batman Dark Knight? I mean, there's too much. And yeah, sure, you can limit yourself. Anybody can put limits on themselves. I mean, I've put a cap on after the new new animated Turtles series came out for IDW based on the Nickelodeon cartoon. I was like, yeah, I'm not getting any new titles. I'm just not. Right now, I'm currently collecting Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, the Batman and series. It was originally Batman and Robin by Peter Tomasi. 4 or 5 Transformers titles, the Turtles title, Superior Spider-Man, and then those are my main things that I get every month. But then DC's doing, it's the new 52 anniversary, so we have to do something special. Let's do Villains Month. I'm only cherry picking those for characters I care to read about. The Joker, I'm interested to see what is going on. They have this one issue coming out, the Joker's daughter, Penguin, Mr. Freeze. That's really all I'm interested in. But yeah, between... It almost seems, and I know a lot of Superman fans might get mad at me for this, but it almost seems that Batman is now the popular guy. Like, Batman is the number one for DC. I know Superman still is as well. And I know Superman in himself, he has multiple titles. But I just don't understand why you can't have one monthly ongoing, and if you want to do a different take on it, have another monthly ongoing. Like, they've got... Superman, the regular ongoing, and they've got Superman Unchained, which is something new that they started. So I just don't get it. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I gravitated towards the Ultimate stuff in like 2004. I mean, yeah, I said that I grabbed New Avengers and I grabbed all this other stuff, but at that time, I'd also started reading the Ultimate Universe, which had been running since I think 2001, maybe. I don't know. I remember before I'd go into work, I'd go and sit in the Barnes & Noble and read the trade paperbacks, volume after volume after volume. And that's like one of those... I really like the Ultimate stuff, and I know that's where, at least in my opinion, that is where Marvel is drawing a lot of their inspiration for their movies from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, being a Marvel guy that I am, and... enjoying the characters as I do, when it comes to the movies, I know a lot of people get up in arms over like, it's not continuity, it's not this. I mean, and they do that with Batman, they do that with Superman, and all this other stuff. But for some reason, like, I never, as stickler as I am for like continuity and characters being the way that they are, I really do forgive. Like, I get that there's Marvel 616, which is your standard continuity. and then there's the Marvel Ultimate Universe, and then there's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they're going to take all the liberties that they want to make the character work on the screen, which is fine.
Yeah.
And everyone, every single movie I'm okay with, except unless it has Wolverine in the title, then I get irritated because that's another one of my favorite Marvel characters.
Yeah. I had to fast forward through half of AGU number 3 because spoilers for I have yet to see the Wolverine yet. So, yeah, with the movies, like everybody was up in arms. Oh my God, Superman doesn't kill. Please, seriously.
My take on that, and we've said this on Ultra Geek, but my take on that is that wasn't Superman. I don't think he was Superman in Man of Steel.
Yeah, he was Clark or Kal-El or what? Yeah, he was one of the other 3 IDs that he has.
But I do agree with everyone being upset about. I understand why people are upset that he killed somebody, because I have to agree with some other people I've seen on the internet that raise the interesting argument of him killing someone trivializes every other problem that he could possibly have. Because if something gets too bad, he can just kill him. Because that was one of Superman's things. That's one of Superman's things, that he doesn't kill. And it's kind of like, well, you've already shown him taking the quote-unquote easy way out in the first movie, so what's preventing him from taking the easy way out all the time? And I think that is what's going to make Superman in the movies. Which is why I say he wasn't Superman in the first one, because he took the easy way out. And I think the repercussions of that have yet to be seen, but I think they'll just make it so that's one of the things he adheres to now, is that he will not kill. Like, he doesn't want to do that again.
Well, you have to set that, because technically Man of Steel is a whole new universe. That's the setup there, where you have he kills Zod, and that leads to him having all kinds of, regret, and I wouldn't say necessarily remorse, but regret and just, oh my God, these are my powers. If I overuse them, I'm screwed. Everybody else in this world is screwed, so I need to keep it in check at all times. That's kind of like, the speech that Superman in the end of Justice League Unlimited did with Darkseid.
Brilliant
he
speech.
lives in a world.
Brilliant speech.
I love that. I just love that entire thing. But yeah, it's like, he lives in a world where he feels like he has to wear kid gloves all the time. And it's true because, and I think that's where the Superman films are going to go now. He's going to realize, holy crap, what did I do? I need not to go that far, no matter, there's always another way. The film universe, I recently listened to a podcast called For Better or Worse. It's Michael Sims and his wife Shayna. They remake movies. They do movie reviews, but then they go on and how would you remake it now? They recently, a couple weeks ago, just did an episode on Daredevil, and I was listening to that. And don't get me wrong, I know there are problems with 2003's Daredevil. But if you look at the theatrical cut of Daredevil, even though it wraps it up in a nice little bow at the end, that is a perfect movie for a mainstream audience that has never read a Daredevil comic in their life. The origin is simple, basic, and straightforward. Yes, there are convoluted points in that movie along the way, but the origin is basically Matt's dad. Matt saw his dad doing something that he wasn't supposed to be doing and ran away, and the radioactive, because it's Marvel, everything has to be radioactive. Radioactive toxic waste or whatever it was, basically made him blind, and it gave him this, other worldly senses and heightened his senses and all that. That's a straightforward origin for that character. And I can pretty much forgive almost everything in the Marvel Universe unless they're using way too much violence, like in Punisher Warzone. That is still one of the movies that I just cannot get behind. The other one, just for the sheer fact that it's so stupid, is Elektra. Oh my God.
I tried watching Elektra the other day because it's on HBO Go, and I stopped watching mainly because I can't stand Jennifer Garner.
I like her as an actress. I loved her in Alias, but they set it up in Daredevil where she might be alive, she might not be alive, and I like that not knowing factor from the end of that film. But then, because I don't know a lot about Elektra, like as far as her comic origins and all that, I didn't know the League of Assassins or whatever the hell they're called or whatever the hell it is in Marvel's universe of assassin, ninja people, whatever the hell, Illuminati or whatever the hell.
The Hand.
You know, okay, there you go, the Hand. That hand does not need a job. You know, it's one of those things where I just didn't get it. And the acting, not on her part, but on everyone else in that movie, the acting is so bad. The direction is horrible. I don't know. But pretty much, even, I know you don't like it, as long as Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, I will enjoy, even though I find faults with Origins. Even though I find faults with that film, I still enjoy it because it's Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Well, I don't dislike Hugh as Wolverine. I don't have an issue with
No,
that.
I know you don't, but I'm just saying, like...
I just don't get... He's the one character that has... He has such... Okay, first of all, he's a cheeseball character. There's no way around Wolverine being a cheeseball character. I understand how ridiculous Wolverine is as a character. The stuff that I've seen happen to him in the comics that I have read are absurd. I mean, I have the Wolverine handbook that is like supposed to be like a cliff notes to the character, and it has one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. In that he spent, I don't know, I think it was like 3 or 6 months trapped under an iceberg, and he survived because he ate his own flesh and regenerated it. Like. That is how absurd that character gets. Not to mention there are issues and I have the issue where he gets all of his flesh blown off of him, and he is down to the adamantium skeleton, and he regenerates. Like, he is a completely absurd and over-the-top character, but given that, he is such a, like, the stories that they have to tell are so rich and great that I feel like the character of Wolverine is now being done a disservice, not by Jackman, but by Fox. Being done a disservice by not having him back in the Marvel Studios portfolio, because he was alive during World War II. He and Captain America rescued Magneto. It's like you could have, like, Wolverine Origins, they could have shown that if it had been back in the regular Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Weapon X program by itself is like a 90 to 2 hour movie alone, and that would have been amazing. I mean, there's a book out there, it's actually called Weapon X. It's not a graphic novel, it's an actual novel, no pictures, and it is just a description of everything that he went through in the it's a novelization of everything that he went through in the Weapon X program. And it's the same characters that are in the comics, like all the scientists that are known, like Dr. Cornelius and all that stuff. All of that is in there, but they talk about him having flashbacks to Vietnam and him having flashbacks to World War II and the first time he ever, like, his claws ever popped out and all this stuff. In fact, the only time that book gets dumb is when they do the adamantium bonding process, and apparently nobody in all of this stuff, nobody bothered to take x-rays of his skeleton. Because all of a sudden he had razor-sharp claws in his forearms and nobody knew that he had claws. It's kind of like, wait, so you spent all this money developing this program and you didn't x-ray him? Like, that was the only part of the book where it fell flat, but once you get past that, I mean, it gets down to, like, the nitty-gritty of it all, like, even how, like, he's not encased in adamantium, he's just, like, it's because otherwise he would die, he wouldn't be able to produce blood. So there's, like, little, like, nanotubes that actually, like, were placed in his bones first, and then the adamantium was placed around it so his bones could still breathe. Like, it's like, that stuff is, like, incredibly cool, but the book or the movie, like, glosses over all of that stuff. And yeah, that would probably be boring for, like, the average person, but you could still tell stories about, you could make a World War II movie with him. I mean, he's so rich that you can do this stuff. And it's like when I saw Wolverine, there were things at the end of it that I took issue with because stuff that they set up in their own cinematic universe and precedents that are set up in the comics. It's like just because something makes sense doesn't make it good. Okay, I understood the end of Wolverine. I understood exactly what was happening. It still wasn't good. There were just other things they could have done to make it better.
I know that Fox would be giving up a huge amount of money if they gave up the X-Men, Wolverine, and Spider-Man, if they gave them back to Marvel Studios. But it seems to me that they want to compete with Marvel now, creating their own cinematic universes.
And that's fine. I mean, technically, Marvel, I don't know if I don't want this to be like a movie discussion because it was supposed to be comics,
it's comics, yeah.
I don't know.
It's just strange that Fox is, because I've seen rumors that after Days of Future Past there might be an X-Men Fantastic Four crossover, and that's how they're going to reboot Fantastic Four or whatever else. I still say I've only really watched the Fantastic Four cartoons, I think there's 3 or 4 of them, might be only 2, I don't remember. I've really only watched those and the movies. I still defend the 2 Fantastic Four films simply because of Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis as Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm.
Love Chris Evans as Human Torch. No doubt about it. I did not care for either one of those movies, mainly because I've seen the 1990 version of Fantastic Four. I have seen that, the live-action one that was produced so that the studio could keep the rights, but they never released it. Mm-hmm. Special effects aside, much better movie, much better story than what was in the 2 that actually made it to theaters. And I just had, when I rewatched them both a couple years ago, especially the first Fantastic Four movie, every single problem in that movie is because of the Fantastic Four. Like, they cause their own problems, and then they fix their own problems, and they're called heroes for it. I'm like, no, did you people not see what's happening here? And I don't know. It's just weird. And again, Fantastic Four is another one of those team ups. I find myself disliking the 616 continuity of most Marvel characters. If there isn't an X in the title, I do not like the 616 version of them. Mm. I do, however, enjoy Ultimate Fantastic Four and and the Ultimates, which is the ultimate version of the Avengers. In fact, I don't know if you've seen the Ultimate Avengers on Netflix, that cartoon.
I've seen it. I haven't actually watched it, but I've seen it listed on there.
Well, that is a much better movie than what was actually released live action. But I don't know. I like everything, all the interpretations of the characters in the Ultimate world. I'm really excited for the reboot of Fantastic Four because I hope they try to skew for a younger team, which is what Ultimate Fantastic Four was. Basically, the Baxter Building becomes a giant think tank, and everyone in there ranges from 5 years old with a big brain to basically their 20s. It's not people that are in their 30s and 40s and married, and it's more like they're you get to see these people actually inventing things. But I don't know. I'm trying to get into reading more of the newer comics. Like today, I decided that I was going to pick up Wolverine and the X-Men, that comic, and I was going to pick up Uncanny X-Men as well, and start reading that stuff. And even though I'm just now starting to read Avengers Academy, that has through lines to other crossover events like the X-Men versus the Avengers that happened last year.
Yeah, last year.
So when I come across that stuff in Avengers Academy, I will read X-Men versus the Avengers and get that whole picture. But I didn't want to go and just jump into what's out there right now. I kind of like to have a little bit of back history.
I think the last thing we'll bring up is Batman Beyond. You've seen that entire series plus Return of the Joker, right?
I have seen Return of the Joker. I believe I have seen all of Batman Beyond.
Okay, and you've also seen Justice League Epilogue, correct? Okay. You need to read Batman Beyond Unlimited, and then Unlimited is the first title, and Universe is the second title. Unlimited was the first run with Adam Beechin and Norm. I think his last name is Brayfold. I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I'll correct myself later. But Kyle Higgins, writer of Nightwing, is taking over the writing for that, and he loves that series. And basically it's what happened after the events of Return of the Joker and what happened, at the tail end of Epilogue, and they're creating new stories from that with those characters in that animated universe, and it's amazing. If you don't get it in print, you can get it digitally on Comixology for 99 cents a chapter. That's not bad, and it's just they're setting up an amazing. The first 18 issues of Adam's run, part of it was the first 13 issues are 10,000 Clowns, which is a new version of the Jokers. And the second part of it was the Undercloud storyline, which is this new villain called Undercloud, where Kyle brings it in as a year after what happened on Joker Night. And we're just now seeing what has happened in that. We're getting bits and pieces of what's going on since the events of Joker Night. And it's simply awesome. For under $1, digitally for single chapters, that's not bad. And how the print version collects them is 2 chapters a piece. So print version of the book came out earlier in August. So Batman Beyond Universe #1 collects chapters 1 and 2. So it is so cool. So check that out.
Well, if I can get through the New 52 Batman, I will check that out. Like I said earlier, I have issues with almost every DC comic I read. So, and I've already, and again, sigh, roll your eyes, what have you. But I've read the first 2 issues of Batman, and I have not been
happy.
No, it reminded me a lot of just the. It reminded me a lot of like the Long Halloween, and I like the Long Halloween in that series of books. Like I said, I just didn't like the way any of them ended, and it's just I can't. Well, maybe it's just the character. Maybe I'm just used to seeing Batman on screen.
Yeah.
I'm used to seeing like Batman either like animated or like on screen, and I feel like those are my Batmans, not the static image on a comic panel. I don't really, I can't quite put my finger on it, but something about the DC stuff just always rubs me the wrong way.
Well, I don't think the Beyond Universe stuff will rub you the wrong way. I honestly don't. I mean, if you love the shows that much, and at least to me, what they're doing is it's like the animated series is popping off the page again. At least in my opinion. So. All right, if people want to interact with you online, where can they do so?
They can find me at Boothninja81 on Twitter.
All right, we will catch you next time on the Pull Bag when we will have another what's an orange episode? Holy crap. Another Origins episode. I'm not sure who's going to be in the seat next time, but we will see then. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you later.
You still try to fight. Can't you see that it's hopeless?
That man won't quit as long as he can still draw a breath. None of my teammates will. Me? I've got a different problem. I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard. Always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone. Never allowing myself to lose control, even for a moment, or someone could die.
Are you looking for a weekly dose of gaming news and retro? And check out Off the Cuff, available Fridays on Geekcast Radio Network from the producers of XRG. New name, same.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.